Any questions from any thoughts about from last week? No?
Well, I was just reading my notes, and you mentioned that as the mind gets more subdued, we have access to more information around us, and I thought that was pretty interesting.
It's a nice way of thinking about it, isn't it? Because I mean, the whole idea, right, around Buddhist psychology and Buddhist practice is that we have these really unlimited qualities, and we're not accessing them. I mean, even the information like we talked about last week, where mothers will be experiencing distress of their babies when they're not even around, from far away, and premonitions and things like that, deja vu. So yeah, the information is there, and we're just blocked.
And another interesting thing that you said is that in the way is habit.
And the what?
In the way of that is habit, our habits.
Yes, yeah, in the way is habit. We usually don't think of it like that. So we usually think, oh, I'm just limited. You know what I mean? We just tend to think I have some limitation. I'm just limited. That's just who I am. It's how I remember my father saying, oh, I'm too old to change, that kind of line. And that's really that's probably where most people are, because they don't know the information that, like you're saying, they don't know our potential, right? It's funny how we have to actually be taught about our potential. And I think that Buddhist thought does that quite well. Well, in some ways it's a bit traditional. I think if we extrapolate from the traditional teachings and kind of make it into modern English or modern language or culture, that it's then easier to understand. Do you know what I mean? So I think that, by the way, what's both of you, if you don't mind, because we're such a small group at the moment, what's your guys' background, any Buddhist thought or meditation or study or anything like that? None? Little? Zero?
Well, I've been dabbling on Buddhism for maybe 6 years now, on and off.
All right. Matthew, how about you?
Lots of watching speakers, but always, on YouTube, that kind of thing. And
Right.
So only recently did I realize that I could kind of join a group and participate through Zoom. So that's really been incredible to have it be interactive. It's really powerful compared to just watching a recording. You know what I mean? So some before the pandemic, I would go to a few different meditation centers in Vancouver, several times a month, kind of thing, and I really like that as well. But with this group, it's the instruction is really nice,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think something, and maybe you can comment on this. I think one of the things I noticed what's happening is that Buddhist ideas are very much more prevalent, right? They're much more accessible. As a long-term Buddhist, what we notice is that the presentation of Buddhist ideas, it's not so hard, because it's very compatible with rational thinking and modern culture. It doesn't demand that people revert back to an ancient culture or an ancient way of thinking, and as long as it's translated. But now what the challenge is that I notice is, can people go into depth? So there's a lot of availability in Buddhist ideas, but I think you can dabble or watch or be interested, but never really have to never really have to interact. You know what I mean? I mean, never actually having to go deeper, which is through meditation or debate and contemplation, that sort of thing. So that's one of the things I'm noticing is that people can stay kind of, you can find a lot of stuff on YouTube and different workshops and talks that kind of just stay along the surface. And then if for real change to happen, that's a different thing. And I think that what I've noticed is a lot of presentations or presenters maybe are afraid to push people, because they don't want to push people away. But if you're really talking about taking care of one's problem, really what we're talking about is therapy, right? I mean, it's really about becoming more healthy, more balanced, more well-being, more genuine happiness. There's going to be some confrontation, with ourselves. And so I think that people can avoid that confrontation by just continuing to, which is not bad, by the way. It's good to be interested. I guess when I'm talking about the stage after interesting, are people really interested in becoming more happy? I mean, everyone is interested in that, but isn't it kind of strange that we have to work at it? It's kind of strange. Here we are, like human beings, we're born, and then all of a sudden you start hearing, particularly in this generation, in the last 10, 15 years, you have to work at being happy. It's like, it seems almost like an insult, right? But I think that sort of comes down to understanding what is the nature of happiness, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of well, they say growth is painful, right? When you embrace
Right.
personal growth, it's like sometimes it's like unbearably painful, but
Yeah.
then you're happy afterwards, right?
Yes. So it's interesting to think about for a second. What is it that gets people to make the switch? Like I would say my dad was kind of interested. He would talk to me about these ideas, but he was never, I shouldn't say never, but it wasn't like he was going to start engaging in them because it was philosophical for him. I sometimes think, well, I do think that probably the best motivator is pain.
Yeah. Yeah, like on the being on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and you're
yeah. I really think that really motivates us. Now, the question I've noticed with a lot of, including myself, that once the pain alleviates, then people are kind of like, okay, it takes a long time to realize that you go back in the pain, sometimes I think people just think they just want therapy, and to get me out of this. Yeah, Ida.
How would you classify yearning? Would that be a sort of pain or desire, a positive desire?
Well, generally it is. There's some yearning that's healthy, right? And also, like, just on a convention, there's two levels. Conventional, there's probably some healthy yearning, and then there's the sort of ultimate yearning, which is the yearning for enlightenment, in order to benefit others. The yearning for bodhicitta, enlightenment, and developing. Now, at a certain point, that yearning has to be uncontrived. You know what I mean? It's non-conceptual. So the bodhisattva who has the yearning to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings doesn't actually have that conceptual thought. It's just like, we don't need a conceptual thought to make myself happy, what we think happy. Like, you don't need a conceptual thought that you want a cup of tea. You just like, I want a cup of tea, and you're going to go get it. You don't have to conceptually like as if you're like learning to drive a car or something, right hand over left hand, this much pressure. We don't have to think like that. And so for the bodhisattva's yearning for the welfare of all sentient beings, it's a yearning that's not self-centered, and it's a yearning that's natural in the same way that we yearn to be happy for ourselves. We don't have to be taught to be happy for ourselves. We have to taught to yearn for that. Now, but obviously, if I yearn for, let's say, a romantic partner, and I can't find her, right? And I just keep yearning and yearning. So that's not a healthy yearning. So the way that one judges a yearning or any of these as healthy or not healthy is at the level if the mind is getting disturbed. And one of the hard ideas for me was understanding that desire was an afflictive mind. So the afflictive minds are the ones that create unhappiness, like desire and anger and jealousy and envy. Okay, so if those are disturbing, because those greatly disturb the mind. So it's not like we wouldn't actually say desire is a bad thing. Does that make sense? They do say that anger is almost always a negative. The anger doesn't, you can't really transform anger it doesn't transform very well. But desire, we need desire. Okay, remember that slide I showed last time of the. Well, did I show the slide of the monkey, little monkey grabbing on the lady's leg? Okay, hang on.
I may not have seen it. I was not here.
Okay.
On previous class.
Oh, I got it. Hang on. I shut down my computer before, so I have to relaunch PowerPoint. Okay. So these kinds of ideas that we're talking about do come from meditation, by the way. And hang on a second. Okay. Where are you guys? Oh, hang on. There you are. Okay. So, so you can see the slide now? Yeah. So that's clinging. The clinging is the problem, not desire. Yeah, I know it's a subtle thing, but desire in its pure form is kind of energy, right? It's just the problem with desire is that it's almost always accompanied by clinging. Okay. And the clinging here is of kind of different types, but it really means clinging in a particular way. This clinging is where you're really hanging on to the object of your desire. Okay. Ida, are you there? Because I got two of you now. Okay, there you go. Okay. Okay. Oh, we got two of Idas again, right? Okay. So when we let me just go a little deeper what we were talking about a second ago. The afflictions, the different descriptions of the afflictions, right? And one of the most common schematics is the one of talking about the 6 root or the 51 mental factors. So 51 mental factors, this is what we're using our meditation on, is that is to identify these. So I believe I mentioned, so we have a couple different kinds of meditations. I remember to mention it last week. And the kinds of meditations that we have that are most prevalent right now, or not prevalent right now, but prevalent that we focus on is of course stabilizing meditation or single pointed concentration, or usually referred to as calm abiding. And the other one is analytical meditation or insight meditation. So those are the two that we definitely need in order to practice these methods. methods of, in terms of the Tibetan Buddhist path or in the Buddhist path. There's other meditations like visualization, right? You know, you visualize deities and different kinds of things. That's also third kind of meditation, which we're not going to really deal with much here. Yeah, and then there's aspiration meditation, you know, things like prayers. But prayers in the Buddhist sense is a kind of meditation. It's where you are using your aspiration to connect with the object of your aspiration. So it is a meditation because you have to, you learn to hold it. Now, all of these are dependent upon our first one that we've been focusing on, stabilizing meditation or calm abiding. Now, because if we don't have focus, we can't hold our focus, we can't get anywhere. And that's the thing, you know, if you do therapy, or even if you do, you know, different kinds, like even, you know, like listening to the teachings, these ideas, you develop insights, right? Everyone gets some sort of insight, but the insight isn't really maintained, is it? You have some memory of it, hopefully, but then we forget. And we can recall it, but we recall it as a memory. We don't recall it as an experience. When we have an insight, it's a direct experience, isn't it? I mean, that's how I think of it. So it's a direct experience, and that aha moment is like, because you almost see it without a conception, isn't it? It's not non-conceptual. It's experiential. That's what we're trying to get to in every moment of our life, so that it doesn't mean we don't have concepts, but the practice of the experience becomes clearer and clearer. You access the information, as we were talking about before. So instead of accessing the information, what are we accessing instead? So we don't actually see this cup, for example, for what it really is. This is the, and I'm hopefully, you know, maybe they'll ask me to do that particular module, you know, on teaching on emptiness, or the, you know, the direct reality of things is essential. You can't really go very far without that understanding and those teachings. And it's only unique to Buddhism, by the way. I mean, quantum physics has a little bit of it. So, okay. So we were talking about yearning. So you see, yearning, if it's done without grasping, and if it's done with wisdom, it's a powerful, very powerful. You know, if you yearn to become a good meditator, that's good. What happens is that grasping thing, because I have many experiences with, including myself, where I really yearn to meditate, even maybe do retreats and do long sessions, and then my mind gets more and more, gets to a point where it's agitated because I can't do it very well, or my knees hurt too much, or I get a lot of angers coming up, you know, because that's what happens in meditation. It's therapy. And so then I get really, you know, I might get depressed or frustrated, discouraged. That's because I'm entering the practice of meditation with clinging, grasping, clinging. So the yearning is fine, but then when it's like, I want it so much, that's attachment. Okay, because if you think about it, and we go back to our formula, if you think, oh God, I just want it, I want it, you can see, if you really analyze, step back and look at that mind, that's a very agitated mind. So we should have a warning flag go up right then. Okay. Yes, Matthew.
Or when you're really kind of focused on getting a particular result, and then you don't get that result, right? And you drive yourself crazy. And then you kind of see, you know, what is happening in your mind, right? Where you're not really looking at the process, you're kind of, you know, and then no result other than the specific one you want is going to do it for you, right?
Right. That takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of time. And also, Matthew and Ida and David, it's dependent on you knowing that information now, right? If you don't know, you just think, oh, I heard that I should strive to become Buddha or Jesus or whatever, you know, but you don't get the rest of the information. It's like, you know, there's a lot of information that we need in order to practice this stuff. It's kind of like if you're consulting a large business, when they're any business in terms of their operations, you got to know the field, right? You got to know about organizational development. You got to know about leadership. You got to know about human dynamics in the workplace. And yes.
I said I'm dabbling because there's so much I don't know. I've taken all the Discovering Buddhism courses all the way up to the 13th.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but and tenets, and I'm taking the 3 principal aspects of the path and all this. I mean, here at Thubten Norberling, before we had a place to be, right, a physical place, and then I moved, and then all this happened, the pandemic, and all this has gone online, but now there's so much accessible material, so many incredible people, teachers available. So, yeah.
So what do you think is missing for you?
For me?
Yeah. If anything, maybe nothing, maybe you're
finding solitude. The effort is there, but there's also life.
Yeah.
It takes effort, and it takes time and perseverance and that yearning,
Yeah. But you're
I wanted to mention I discovered the Buddhist center on my walks, and I kept walking by it. I kept walking by it, so I decided to go in.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. How long ago was that?
2013.
2013.
Yeah, it's been that long. Yeah.
Well, as we get more involved and as we get more committed, I guess committed is something that's not, you don't really think of this too much consciously. It just happens, right? You just like it. It just is helpful. So of course you commit. Then we do need instructors. We do need teachers. You need guides, and it has to be a guide you resonate with, and it's someone you should check out really, quite a while. Part of the problem that's happening in our Western culture is there's a lot coming to the West now in the last 10, 15 years. And with that, a lot of teachers, instructors. And I think we're kind of naive because we think it's a Buddhist teacher that he or she is going to be right, so to speak, or it's not true. Of course, it's like anything, the more the market gets saturated, then the more different levels of instructors, and so it is kind of a buyer beware. It's getting to the point where we need to be discriminating. We need to really check out. And in the traditional lore, traditionally, when a student would seek a teacher, it usually was a 12-year process. Can you believe that? It would, the student would check the teacher out for 12 years and the teacher would check the student out for 12 years. Now, that's kind of, maybe that's a symbolic number, but I think the point is it should take time. It should take time, because once you make the commitment, it's like marriage. Once, when I married my wife, we were living in Nepal, and at Kopan Monastery, where the hub, the founding center for this, and we were girlfriend boyfriend thing, and the Lama Yeshe says you need to get married, and my wife said we don't need to get married. We get we're fine as it is, and his statement was no, you need to make a commitment, right? Well, it's very profound. It's the same with a teacher. You make a commitment, but you're not going to commit to someone. You shouldn't. I'm not saying you personally, one shouldn't commit until you spend some time and check the person out. Yeah.
It actually took me about, I think, almost 3 years to take refuge with Geshe Shera and take my vows. Yeah. Good.
That's good. Yeah. Very good. I think that's the way it should be, gradually, just gradually. So when we look at, should I share a few ideas? I'm happy we can go back and forth. I'll share a few ideas on the meditation side. I think yes, Ida.
I have a slow connection, so Zoom might quit on me. So okay. I'll try to log in back and back.
Okay, I won't take it personally as rejection. Okay. Okay. So we did this. So we did some review last week is what we did. And so we just to remind you, you remember we stopped somewhere around here about Lama Yeshe's statement. Of course, the human mind has both positive and negative sides, but the negative is transient, very temporary. Your up and down emotions are like clouds in the sky. Beyond them, the real basic human nature is clear and pure. Okay. Very, very, very important. I think that fundamentally is the entire premise behind Buddhist practice, right there. Because we as kids, and even not just kids, but even as adults, we don't hear, we're never really taught what the mind is, the nature of the mind is, are we? We're never taught that, which is quite weird. Because it's something that we have since the moment we're born, if not before. Okay, so in a meditation practice, now I'll just go through the. Well, no, we're going to skip this right now, and we'll just do the 9 brown breathing practice again. Did we do that last week or not? I can't remember. No. Okay, so let's just do it. So you just sit in some sort of posture, and this is a breathing practice to use before you start your sessions. And just make sure you're in the proper posture where the spine is straight and the crown of the head is in line with your bottom. Head slightly bent. Eyes how you like them, lightly closed or lightly open. Breathing is just natural. Okay, and then you take your right index finger, is this index finger? And you take, there's 2 ways. Sometimes they teach like this. I was taught to do like this. So you take like where the knuckle is. And you don't have to do it yet because I'll explain it. And you close the left side and you take a deep inhalation through the right. And at the end of the inhalation, you close the right and exhale through the left. Then you do it again. So you do that 3 times. Then we'll switch nostrils. Do it 3 times. And then you do it without holding at all. Do both nostrils. And the visual is so you sort of employ a visualization here, which the visualization is that as you inhale through the right, which I think the right side is the side of attachment, you feel this radiant white light fills up your right side, and then when you go out through the left, the radiant white light fills up the left side as well, and all the attachment energy, you can see it as smog or ink or whatever works for you, goes out through your left nostril. Then you do it again, inhaling through the right, white light fills up the entire right side of your body, crosses over on the exhalation and pushes all the attachment energy out and out through the left side. When you do the left side inhalation, you're going to do the same thing. Left side illuminates on down through your body, up, and the exhalation up through the right side, and it expels all the agitation, anger, irritation energy. Okay. Then we do through both nostrils. You inhale both nostrils, white light filling up the body, and then exhale through the nostrils. All the dirty, what comes out is ignorance in the form of dark smog, ink, whatever works for you. Okay, can even be, sometimes they say like all these ugly insects and animals. So okay, so let's do it. So inhale through the right. Hold it for a second. Out through the left. In through the right. Hold. Out through the left. One more time. Out through the left. Completely empty. Empty the lungs. In through the left. Hold. Switch over and out through the right. To the left. Hold. Out to the right. And to the left. Hold. Out to the right. Place your hands down and then just do 3 on your own through the nostrils. Inhaling, white light fills the entire body. Exhaling all the negative energy in the form of dark light, dark cloud, whatever. Just relax now. Watch. Stay within the relaxation. Okay. So there are different variations and different levels of that breathing practice, many. So that's the basic one. And then there's, like I said, there's many additions, levels. One thing you can do when you're doing that practice is you can pull what we call the downward moving wind, which is, so you bring you close your bottom or like your sphincter, you bring the energy up a little, you close and bring up when you inhale. And if you can hold it the whole time, when you exhale, that's good too, that's fine. So that keeps the energy from escaping through the lower orifices. Okay. 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 So hang on a second. So I mentioned analytical meditation, and we'll get to that later. And if not today, then the next session. So analytical meditation. So remember, we're focusing right now on, because we say meditation, and for most people that means single focus, single point of concentration. And I'm really pushing this thought that it's not just that. But again, usually when you hear about meditation, they're talking about single point of concentration. Analytical meditation is done in conjunction with single point of concentration. Okay. Analytical meditation is when we meditate on a topic like death, impermanence, suffering, things like that. Okay. And there's more. I'll give more detail later. Okay. So when we're meditating, the things that are happening are sleepiness and dullness, right? So there's a few things. One of the things that happens with meditation in the very beginning is people become very excited because they experience new results that they haven't experienced before. So they stay energized and engaged with it. And this is a typical Western problem because anyone can have this, Asian, whatever, Eastern, but we as Westerners are trained in this because that's what the advertisers are working on when promoting the materialistic model. So the materialistic model, why we keep getting new cars and new iPhones and new kinds of technology and new kinds of beds with numbers now, beds that split in half, is because everything becomes boring. So when we talk about suffering, and this is not the class that we're going to talk about this, but I would like to say that people have a hard time understanding the Buddhist approach to suffering, because people will say, well, I got a really good life. I've got enough income. I've got a good family. I've got a good partner. I live in a safe country. I live in a safe place. And and the restaurants around me are really good. And so is the beach. So there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. We would prefer that rather than being in Sudan. So what was that country? What was the country where Somalia? Yeah, Somalia. Sounds like anyway. I don't think there's a lot of pleasure in Somalia, but I'm generalizing, but for the average person, the Western person, the pursuit of happiness means the pursuit of pleasure, isn't it? And because it's unconscious. I'm not saying it's that conscious of a thing. It's just that we're taught that to feel good. And what feels good is pleasure, right? It's better than feeling bad, of course. So in the analytical meditation on suffering, which again, we're not going to go into at the moment, the reason that's very profound is we begin to discover how pleasure is also suffering. That took me a long time to figure out, because it sure doesn't feel like suffering, does it? When you have a nice cup of coffee, a cup of tea, or watching a good show, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the main thing. Lama Yeshe used to stress that Westerners got very guilt-ridden, like, okay, I can't watch TV anymore, and I can't have a good cup of coffee. That's incorrect understanding of the problem. The problem is that the reason desire and pleasure are in the nature of suffering is because they don't last. So it's perfectly fine to want a good cup of coffee. The problem is ignorance. Ignorance is the main problem of everything. All the problems arise from ignorance. So what it means ignorance, it means that when you look at when you start thinking about your cup of coffee and you start going to make it, it's all made with ignorance, meaning intellectually we know, oh, it's not going to last and it's going to get cold and all those kinds of things. That's good, but it doesn't really bring much change. What is the change is that, oh, look at how I'm recruited into believing that this is happiness. It's really hard to explain, isn't it? But you know it when you feel it, right? You know that feeling, and when you're going to get a cup of coffee, and when you're going out to dinner, there's not generally the thought, generally there's the idea that, good, I'm going to get some pleasure, which means two things. Why is it suffering? Two reasons it's suffering. Maybe more reasons, but two reasons is, one, if we weren't in the nature of suffering, why would we need to go out for dinner? Why would we need to get connected with our best friend? Why would we need a partner? Right? So we are living in the nature of dissatisfaction. That's what Buddha meant by the truth of suffering. If we were not living in the state of dissatisfaction, we wouldn't need to seek pleasure, comfort. And people are at different levels. Some people are incredibly hedonistic, right? Some people are just very content, more content, and that just shows us different dispositions. And it's good that people who are more content are going to be more content. But being content from the point of view of wisdom, which is knowing, why am I seeking this partner out when it's not going to satisfy me? Why am I investing so much of my happiness? You know what I mean? So it's very easy to see that normally we invest our purpose or happiness in career, family, pleasures, desires, reputation. Okay, those kinds of things. So that is considered suffering, because those things will not satisfy permanently or even long term. Do you remember how it was when you got your first car? Anyone remember? Kind of exciting. Was it exciting for you? I mean, it was for me, you know. And so that's a good example about now that car, 1958 Volkswagen. It was a vintage car. It was like someone gave it to me. Yeah, it was. They gave it to me, and then I ended up paying her $200. It had the little coils of the on the you flip the turn signal, and these little flags would go up from the side of the car. I wasn't born in 1958, by the way. This is, I think, probably around 1970, 71. I had my first car. Do you remember how that feeling? Now, if you got in that car, I mean, generally speaking, it's like, God, get me out of this thing. It doesn't even go over 55 miles an hour, right? And it smells, the gasoline, the fumes. But when we got it, we were so excited. That's what we're talking about. That's the kind of ignorance. So fine to enjoy it. Lama Yeshe should say that. You say, you should enjoy. You have some great things in your culture. Enjoy them. But just don't cling. Okay? It's like I have friends, not Buddhists, and they're talking about the great things of the new iPhone 12. Are we on 12 or 13 now? I don't know. You know what I mean? You got to get it. You got to get the iPhone 12, man. This thing, the camera on it is so unbelievable, and the face recognition. That's how we are. And it's becoming worse, of course, right? It wasn't like that 50 years ago. Now it's just this explosion of materialism. But the explosion in materialism is because we don't understand the functioning of the mind. So we can't blame materialists. We can't blame in fact, Lama Yeshe say advertisers were the best psychologists. They know exactly how to hook you. So they know psychology. It's amazing when you're around people. I've been very fortunate to be around, like I said, I lived in Nepal for many years in the monastery, and being around people that just naturally get that. They kind of put you down sometimes. You feel like an idiot because I bring them some, in recent years, I might take them like one of the things I took last time were these really powerful, these little flashlights, what's that bulb they have now? It's not lithium, it's they're very bright, right? And I thought these are great because in Nepal, the electricity's going out all the time. So these little flashlights, and it's just like they just, they accepted the flashlight. It's like, but they weren't that excited because they kind of know, it's just a material. It's going to disintegrate, right? Do you understand what? Is it clear what I'm talking about? That the mindset that we go into it, it's the mindset. Okay, it's the mindset. Now, meditation and analytical meditation uncovers all of this. Analytical meditation is for the purpose of analyzing how the mind functions, becoming familiar. Okay, we're going to go through this. I'm not going to talk about these problems. Okay, now when you do, so this is practical stuff right now, if that's helpful. And maybe this helps remind you, Ida, as well. When we do a meditation session, you should have these 4 steps, and you can see many classes on mindfulness, and they don't have these 4 steps because not understanding the function of how the mind works. Really, these 4 steps are designed because of understanding that the nature of the mind and the habits. So the first thing we do is, a lot of times we don't even think about the body. I'm gonna talk in sort of a negative tone, a little condescending tone, which is that, I'm going to meditate, and then maybe they got some instruction on sitting and how to sit and that kind of stuff, but not really knowing how important it is to arrange the body properly. And again, it doesn't mean you have to sit cross-legged or on the floor or on a cushion. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean being attentive to your body, because if your body's in the wrong posture, your mind will go into the wrong frame. That's why I have a hard time meditating lying down, but it is a form of meditation. It does talk about in the text that you can lie on your back. The posture is on your back. It's not. When you die, the meditation is to lie on your right side. And then, like Buddha did, and Buddha closed his left nostril with his left hand, and the arm is under here. Like that's how we're taught to go to sleep at night. If you can sleep like on your right side, the arm under, I can't do it, but I mean, I can sleep. But it's better if you sleep on your right side, generally speaking, for different reasons. It has to do with the energy winds, maybe less bad dreams. Anyone of you guys have some bad dreams sometimes? Did you ever notice if you're sleeping on your back when it happens?
I have bad dreams sometimes, but I don't notice my posture when I wake up from them. But sometimes, yeah, bad dreams for sure.
Check now if you're on your back. I'm not saying there's a particular kind of event of bad dreams that happens when one sleeps on their back. And it doesn't happen to everyone. It doesn't happen all the time. It's just more like check it out, It doesn't have to happen that way, but if you're having bad dreams, if they're the type, they can happen when you're on your back. And let me know what you find out. Okay? I mean, probably everyone has bad dreams, but so yeah. So when you're going to do a session, even if it's just 5 minutes, just make sure your body's in the right posture, conducive posture. Then, so this is the Buddhist approach, by the way. So what we do the second point is generate a positive motivation. Okay. And we've talked about that a little bit. We didn't do it tonight. I made an error because before this class, we should motivate. Okay. A motivation. Now, remember when I mentioned the 51 mental factors? Well, 5 of those mental factors we call omnipresent mental factors. And the omnipresent mental factors, they're called omnipresent because they're there all the time, even when you're sleeping. They can become very subtle. One of the 5 omnipresent mental factors is called intention. What that means is that whenever the mind experiences an object, and it's always experiencing, so intention is always there. So even when you just mindlessly brush your hair like Matthew's doing, there's intention there. You didn't even know it, right? So it doesn't mean the intention like, oh, my hair doesn't look so good, I want to make it look better. That's a big intention. It doesn't necessarily mean like that. It's also just it moves the hand up here. Something moved it up there. That gave it intention. Okay? Maybe it was an itch, could be anything, okay? So any experience, there's intention. So that's why an intention is related to karma or imprints, mental imprints. Intention is what intention is the mental imprint, kind of mental imprint we put on our consciousness. So when we have a lot of the desire for pleasure, intention it determines whether that's a negative or not. And what we were talking about earlier, the intention is generally, I want to be happy. And it's due to ignorance because the pleasure can't make us happy. Now, if the intention is to feel pleasure because, for the benefit of all sentient beings, then that intention is wholesome. Okay? Or maybe, Ida made me dinner and I just really want to enjoy it because it'll make her happy. That's worthwhile. Unless you're a high lama, a high teacher, and you want to help Ida have less attachment, and then you're really nasty about it. It's possible, because the intention is still for her benefit, right? If the intention is for her benefit, then the action is wholesome. Although there's a little caveat to that. The caveat is that you better be careful about really be honest that your intention is wholesome. A lot of times people say, you know, this hurts me more than it hurts you. You know, I'm doing it for your benefit. And you should be suspicious of that. Okay. To actually do things from compassion is not easy. We have to have opened up the compassion mental factor. Even if it's not open all the time, at least it's like when mothers are protecting their children from running into the road, right? We would say the intention is compassion. They're not thinking of themselves. They're thinking of their child. So generate a positive motivation. Hang on a second. Yeah. Okay. And then the actual meditation, and then dedication. And I'll just go through these real quickly. So range in the body, you already know. Okay. You can use, almost everyone uses a cushion, and you can experiment on the height of that cushion, the height and the firmness. This is pretty tricky, because when you're doing long sessions, it's good to know ahead of time what your ideal position is for you. I do not like those really hard Zafu cushions myself. I find them too high and too hard. I tend to use more, I use like it depends, a firm pillow, you know. I like it's best that your bottom is raised about 2 or 3 inches. It helps keep your spine straight. But I really encourage you to experiment, try a lot of different things. And one day you'll just find, wow, that feels really comfortable. And also, I want to say something about when you sit. Of course, it's good to sit cross-legged and those kinds of things, because it helps the energy flow. But I also want to stress that there are times that you do want to push yourself physically. I'm going to say this sort of with caution. I think that myself, I learned to sit better and better because I would push my body. But I really want to caution you, but that you have to be, what's the word? You have to be sort of conscious of that, because I know other people. I have a friend who just had knee surgery because he was always a pusher, and his knees just blew out from sitting. I mean, I can't say what he did was wrong, you know, but so when you're sitting, and in our beginning stages, it's okay to stretch out after a while. You know, stretch your legs, loosen, because what happens, our legs and knees get tight. And this is an interesting little experiment I really want you to do. And I've experimented with this, and I find it true that there's a correlation between my tight knees or back and my agitated mind. Definite correlation. I like to think now that the mind gets agitated first, then the body. But sometimes it just feels like the body's getting tight. It's getting uncomfortable. And then you stretch your leg, and your mind then gets kind of agitated and tight. Stretch your legs out at that point, or stand up. But eventually, over time, you want to just work through it. But it's a balance. Not too tight, not too loose. Like the guitar string, right? The violin string. If too tight, it breaks. Too loose, it doesn't make nice music. Okay, so the second step that I was on is generate a positive motivation. It's at this point, once you settle your body, you check in and you be very honest as to what's really motivating you to sit down right now. And it can be things like duty, it can be competition, it can be spiritual, like I really do want to better my mind. That's the good one. And then the best, I really do want to better my mind and train my mind in order to be a benefit to others. That's what we're looking for. That's the Mahayana motivation. Okay, so the motivation, since everything has effects, when we motivate with the right kind of attitude, it does have effects. It's going to have effects. Okay. I really feel sad for a lot of meditators, just today, mindfulness, all that kind of stuff, who don't get this teaching on motivation, because the motivation is very temporal. Okay. Well, it's not bad. Don't get me wrong. It's still positive, but I think it's much. Can you imagine? So someone who's, I have one client I refer to for emotional-based mindfulness training, by John Kabat-Zinn. It's a secular program, and it's to help people de-stress. So it was originally based on Buddhist practices, but is it Buddhist? It looks like, right? They do the same thing we do. What makes it not Buddhist is the motivation. When I say Buddhist, I don't mean the religion of Buddhism. It doesn't lead to awakening, what they're doing, because the motivation isn't for awakening. The motivation is to de-stress. I think. I mean, that's my experience with it is. It's fine to de-stress, but why not de-stress while you're training your mind to be something much more wholesome and exalted? Okay. So the Buddhist approach is that it starts right off saying there's a quality of mind that's exalted, that's profound, that's deep. And that's where it starts. Now, when you're going to do mindfulness meditation or emotional-based mindfulness training, you're not really told. I mean, you might be told that, but that's not the goal, is it? Okay. Does that make sense? Everyone with me? Okay. Because every instant we are leaving imprints on our consciousness. So if every instant we're leaving imprints on our consciousness, as I do remember that the 4 qualities of karma or mental imprints, one of them is everything all causes will have an effect. So now when they'll have their effect is a different story. But if we want to attain this awakened mind, it's a result of a cause. But if we don't make the causes, we don't get the result. Good health is an effect, isn't it? It's a result. Bad health is a result. Cancer is a result, right? It's an effect. Well, we don't think about cause. Generally in the material sciences, then of course the cause is always material. I'm going to take the screen share off for a second. I want to ask you something. So is cancer, for just example, cancer, is the cause physical? Yes, Ida?
No. The physical will be the result. You have made many decisions along the way that led you to that dysfunction of the body, that disharmony. The food you ate, the air you breathe, the relationships you even have.
So, yeah, I'll tell you, I agree with you. And just so it's a profound, of course, karma is the most profound. It's called a very hidden topic. So it's not easy to understand rationally. It's something that eventually has to come through experience, through your meditation, actually. But on an academic level, it's good to start thinking about that there's causes and there's conditions. And in the Western material sciences or Western thinking, conditions are defined as the causes. They are not. It's a really hard one for us to get our mind wrapped around. Karma is a very, very difficult thing to accept. but for us, it's kind of a fact. It's the same as gravity. It's something, gravity, everything drops. It's a law, right? We believe that karma is a law, and karma is kind of not the best word for us to use anymore, but we're stuck with it because it's a Sanskrit word, and so everyone thinks it means like fate. Karma does not mean fate. Okay, so karma, it doesn't mean strictly this, but if you think of it as karma meaning mental imprint or mental action, mental actions means karma. Now, mental action has the quality of leaving an imprint on our consciousness. Okay, that's karma. That imprint is a karmic seed, which we can call a mental imprint. And all mental imprints or karmic seeds will ripen. Not only that, so with cancer, let's just we'll talk just kind of generally speaking, okay? So what's unknown in the modern culture is if, they keep looking at the physical cause of cancer, which of course we have to, because we don't know how to treat it physically, right? But the cause is mental. Okay? So why do I not have cancer and then there's not, why you take two twins, for example, a pair of twins, one has cancer, one doesn't. Why? And typically, if it's physical, purely physical, they both should have it because their genes are more or less the same, right? And then they start looking about splitting of genes and defective genes. Like, well, that's all okay. What we say is those are the conditions. But why did the one twin have a defective gene and the other didn't? Right? And then they'll start looking about different things, right? And then they might even say, well, the one twin, for about a year, he was working as a janitor with cleaning solvents, and so that must be right. That's where we go. So those are helpful, but that's not the meaning of cause. And this is going to take a long time to work through in Western culture because this is what's referred to, I mentioned before, there are obvious topics, there are hidden topics, and there are very hidden topics. Karma is the very hidden one. The reason they call it very hidden is that you cannot prove it without a direct experience of it. And in meditation, we can experience karma. You go, oh, I get it. There it is. You know what I mean? But without that, we can talk about it logically, but we won't be committed. It takes a bit of faith for a while. And hidden topics and general topics don't take much faith. Okay? They can now a hidden topic would be, well, a metaphor or example that would be amoeba, right? You can't, that would be a hidden object, but with an instrument, you can see it, right? With a microscope. Okay. Now, a wall is an obvious object, sorry, because we can see the wall. So that's kind of how it works. But when you think about the dark side of the moon, that would be a very hidden object because you can't perceive it without special powers of perception. With powers of perception, you can perceive the dark side of the moon. Now, of course, now they can send satellites or whatever, around there and perceive the dark side. And then it becomes a hidden topic. It goes from very hidden to hidden. But we could say that the dark side of Pluto. Okay. Now, the same analogy is used with philosophical topics. Okay. So, for example, gross impermanence. We all can see that. We all can see that houses, decay. We can all see that after summer, winter, autumn comes. Okay, so that's a big gross. So that's gross impermanence. That's a general topic. That's perceptible, not hidden. The hidden part The hidden part is seeing like the decay, and the very hidden is seeing the very subtle impermanence. Okay, they're almost, I think, I'm thinking a little bit out loud here. So when, for example, when we look at the wall, we know that the atoms are moving and molecules are moving around. So we know intellectually it's impermanent, right? But the idea of that would be a hidden topic. The perception of that would be very hidden topic. You understand? So the second one is intellectual, can be understood intellectually. We all understand intellectually that that wall is moving. Okay, that's more subtle than the house is going to decay and fall apart. I need to get a new deck because it's old. That's the gross one. Okay, so gross, subtle, and very subtle. Okay, gross, hidden, very hidden. Why was I bringing this up? So this is where analytical meditation comes in, and this is where karma, the cause. So the cancer patient is due. So the very hidden phenomena, the karma, is that that person generated imprints on his or her consciousness. And those imprints are ripening now as cancer. Does that make sense? But what imprints are we talking about? So this is where, well, they say only the Buddha knows all the various different, causes, right? But we have some generalizations. That's main reason, one of the main reasons in Buddhist values that we don't kill. We don't kill out of very selfish motivation, actually. Because when killing, one of the results of killing is poor health. Another one is short life. Another one is being born in a violent place. So right? So why are we born in safe places and then we know people are born in Syria and Somalia and South Central Los Angeles? Why? Seems like just chance, right? So the chance is the explanation for people who don't know, or God's will, right? God's will. So in Buddhist science, it has to do with the karmic imprints, and those imprints ripen, and then they ripen as your environment. For example, they ripen as your body. They ripen as the disease. You do need the conditions too. You do need to have the broken genetic code or the smoking cigarettes, or you need, there's going to be some conditions involved. Of course, the body's breaking down, that's the condition of it. Does that make sense? Okay. So analytical meditation looks at these kinds of things. Okay, we'll get back to it. Let's get to any questions? Anything come up? No. Okay. Okay, let's just go through. That's what motivation is about. Okay, that's what motivation is about. And other discovering Buddhism, other Buddhist classes, it's going to take you deeper into these topics, because these are the philosophical topics that really matter. So in terms of your motivation, one way to check in with yourself, is it ego-driven? Is it through pride, recognition? You want your, I don't know, your partner or your kids to know that you're trying to make an effort and you're meditating like that. That's ego. Now, in traditional Buddhist language, the phrase they use is for the happiness of this life. And that's kind of a little bit of a I'm going to say gross statement. Happiness. I mean, aren't we supposed to be happy this life too? So, of course, it just means you're doing it to feel good, and so, whether pride, recognition, praise, that's what means happiness in this life. All those things are okay, but if you're doing it just for that, and here's the sad recognition is that people who are doing it because they want to feel calmer, just for the happiness of this life. So it's good, it's positive, right? But we have to decide what level of positivity do we want to generate. So in Buddhist practice, happiness in this life is not considered a virtuous motivation because it just dissipates, it disappears. The moment nothing lasts in that. So then there's this thing about happiness of the future life, or you meditate. In terms of meditation, we're talking, so many meditate, like if you look at the Hindu tradition, many of their meditations are for the happiness of the future life. They want to be reborn in a God realm. Okay, which is very, very high realm, very blissful, very, exalted. It's amazing. That is considered the lowest spiritual motivation. So if you have that, that's okay. Now, sometimes you motivate happens future life because you might have some certain conditions in your life where you go, I can't do it in this life. I've got 6 kids and I have to work, I have to raise them. You know what I mean? That's natural reality. So, and then, you don't have the money, you're never going to be able to retire, etc. Actually, there's no condition that one couldn't actually attain enlightenment in this lifetime. But, people get overwhelmed by their conditions, and what you would be meditating for is to attain rebirth into a better rebirth, a higher realm in a pure land where you can then practice. Because these things do exist. Okay, or you just got a crappy rebirth. Happens to a lot of people. And I think this is familiar for Eastern people, Indians and Tibetans, they can see, they have they don't have very good conditions. So they might focus on accepting their karma of this life and praying or meditating or putting their focus on their next life. And that's because they have an understanding that life to life is life is momentary anyway. And we've had countless lifetimes. We're going to have countless lifetimes more. It's a little bit like, it's very, very much like, when you're working hard, I got to work hard this week because you're going on vacation next week. Right? It's very similar. It's just we're talking about life to life is seen like week to week. It's not a lot. There's really not much difference other than you change your body. But even you could argue that the body you have today and the body you have next week when you go on vacation, are they the same bodies? Conventionally, yes. But not exactly, because every atom in your body has changed in a week, hasn't it? I mean, they're moving around. They're realtering, they're reshifting, so even that, it's just our concept is that this body is permanent and fixed, isn't it? It's a concept. That's one of our habits. Is your body the same body as when you were 2 years old? Anybody who says yes? No. Yeah. So future lives, it's just in past lives, exactly the same thing. It's just that on a conventional level, yes, this consciousness is abiding in this body. And when we die, this consciousness leaves this body and inhabits another body. So that's what we talk about future. That's a next life. But that's the only real, that's what happens. Yes, Matthew.
That's the mainstream view in some places.
Oh yeah,
the view of most really, yeah. In the East, right?
Yes,
India.
yes.
That's what.
Yes, very much so. Some people are not so educated, so they have that as part of their understanding. Yes. I think it's going to change. It's changing. It's in the process of changing as it become more materialistic, right? But generally, yeah. Even still, it's now. it's kind of sad because like in China, which is was a very Buddhist country, and since the Cultural Revolution, they've been trying to wipe it out. So they're kind of funny about their ideas about future. I mean, the official stance is funny, but I think most people who are still now Buddhist, they believe even that. But you go to countries like Thailand, all the Buddhist countries, India, the Hindu countries, yes, Nepal, they all have. I don't know about Islamic countries. I know they believe in heaven, but I don't know if they believe in multiple future lives. I don't think they do. I'm not sure. It's the same as the Judeo-Christian. It's just because of the philosophy. And in fact, maybe people know better than me, but I've read a number of places that in the first Christian council, or was it the third, they took the teachings of rebirth out because they felt they were demotivating for the people. This is a European thing. So they felt it was a demotivating people, that it was a power thing. They felt they had less control over people if people felt that they could just endure until the next life. And also you can see that must have been true, and that Jesus must have taught that, because if you think about the logic, they do. Christianity does teach reincarnation, don't they? Yes or no? Ida,
reincarnation. You mean into heaven or hell?
Yeah, isn't that reincarnation?
Right, sure.
So,
or into what do they call it? Limbo, right?
Yeah, purgatory. So if you take now, it's so funny because if you get a good Christian Christian willing to have a debate, which you won't find because it's a faith-based religion for the most part, it makes no sense at all that you could just have two lives. It doesn't make any kind of logical sense, because when you think of cause and effect, right? So what's the cause of being born in heaven? They say, well, this, you got to do this, you got to do that. Oh, I see. So what about when I killed 14 people? Those causes what happened to those causes? And they say, what do they say? Oh, I guess you confess. So, so then you get born in heaven, and you can, as a debater, you start thinking, well, is heaven impermanent or permanent? Well, it's impermanent, right? Changes moment to moment. And so that means it has a level of cause and effect, right? So don't the causes run out? It's kind of like don't the causes run out to live in a mansion? I mean, eventually, doesn't that run out? If you live a long time, eventually it's going to run out. So it doesn't there's no logic to it. But they don't care about that there's no logic, because they're a faith-based religion, like a lot of religions. But you start talking now, one of my sons, I have two sons and a daughter, and when I say they're raised Buddhist, we did a very unique thing. We didn't raise them Buddhist. We were just Buddhist. You know what I mean? I think I have a lot of friends who are Buddhists and their kids rejected Buddhism, like Catholicism. We didn't believe that it'll speak for itself. Let it speak for itself. So we did that with our kids. I mean, they're around lamas and stuff like that, of course, but we never said you have to be Buddhist and make them do all these rituals and things. A few, like offering some of their food and things like that we did. But then the funniest thing was that our teacher, Lama Thubten Rinpoche, who we would get advice from, so we got advice. I have my two boys. We asked Rinpoche, my daughter as well, where they should go to school, high school. And because we didn't like the local high school, it's just like a little bit too. Anyway, didn't like it very much. And both the boys, he suggested they go to the Christian school. Get that? And this Christian school is not Catholic. It's kind of, I don't know what denomination is, but they're pretty. I'm not born again, but I'm not sure. They're pretty rigid. And so they had to go to Bible class. I don't know if that every day or once a week. I think every day, maybe 4 years, 3 years. And they would say, yes, you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, right? So my younger son is he's he has a very scientific mind. So he's like, well, now, and they call on him, and he said, well, you said the earth was formed 6,500 years ago. And yes, that's right. That's what the Bible teaches us. And he'd say, well, I have this fossil at home that I found, and it's carbon dated 3 million years. How do you explain that? And carbon dating is just a theory, right? So then next day, he raised his hand. He said, you said that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, but if he created the world, why did he create so many like murderers? And if it's and then God created, and then it created in the image of himself, why would he have an image that was have cancer or spina vidya, with children born, terrible, the worst things you got to come up with. So after a while, they says, okay, you know what they told him after a while? God works in mysterious ways. And at that point, he was a convinced Buddhist, because we never said that. It's not that we would agree. We always had, but we'd have discussions, and he was allowed to question. And we treasure questioning. You got to question. Questioning is related to analytical meditation. So that doesn't hold up the logic about the one life reincarnate and two lives. It doesn't really make sense. And we can go into that some other time. Some other class about karma becomes very, very fascinating. So. In fact, we'll do meditation tonight before we finish on a little bit on that. Yeah. Okay. So that was step 2, motivation. Okay. So ideally, you want your motivation to be for enlightenment. So what that means is the bodhicitta motivation is very simple. It's just that when you sit and you're meditating, you're going to meditate. You take anything that's going to happen in that meditation is the cause of your enlightenment. Okay, you're doing this. This is going to be the cause of my enlightenment eventually. And why am I attaining enlightenment is because I can't stand the suffering of all the sentient beings. And the middle one, liberation, does not have that motivation. It is a Buddhist practice. It's the Theravada Southern Hinayana practice. They don't have in their consciousness the activation of this idea of the welfare of others. It's just not their personality. Okay, it's called a lineage. They don't have that lineage. So they meditate and they do attain liberation. You often hear they attain lower nirvana, or they become arhats. Those kind of words. Okay. But we're trying to avoid that. Sometimes they say, your natural compassion arises when your meditation goes deeper and deeper, and you see more and more, and then just you look to the side and you see another person or animal, and you go, oh man. You just got an instinctive feeling that they're in trouble. Usually for me personally, the trouble looks a little bit like when they die, where they're going to be reborn. Okay, I realize it sounds religious or something, but I believe it logically that we have we have endless rebirths, and there are other realms, and due to cause and effect, not just some whimsical thought, due to cause and effect, it makes total sense to me that someone would be born in a lower realm, be born in whatever, hell realm, or being born in as cattle. I drove down to LA this weekend, and you don't know that a drive to LA is that you pass by on Highway 5 a I guess it's a slaughterhouse. What do you call, where they have, acres and acres and acres of cows, beef. And they're just sitting there eating or whatever they do, but they're all going to be slaughtered. You know, those those cows were they messed up. When you start thinking about rebirth and you think it's kind of terrifying because there's a mind in there. Their minds are not like ours because they have more dullness and less, but they're a personality. When they get their food, they're happy to get their food, and when they get killed, they're not happy to get killed. They're very terrified. If there's no being in there, why would they show terror?
They have all sorts of good qualities, maternal qualities, and right, where that you can tell they have affection for
definitely
each other, right? They definitely have, there's something, the personality, like just like you said, right? Absolutely.
Right. It doesn't that make you more convinced there's a person in there? I don't have time about human, but there's a personality. There's an I in there, and yes, it may be duller or whatever, and it can't, with your dog. I mean, it's dog and your cat. I mean, who has a pet that doesn't think there's some guy in there or some girl? You know what I mean? There's someone in there, right? They're not the same as us. That's why it's a lower realm, by the way, is because their level of their ability to do something about their condition is very low. Whereas the human, we have ability to do. We are so fortunate. That's what separates humans from the lower realms. In the lower realms, there's no facility. There's no facility to kind of make a change. Not much. I mean, dogs are kind of probably at the top of the animal realm, right? But you tell your dog, hey, I'm going away for a couple of days, and I've left your food down in that bottom cabinet that you can open with your teeth, but don't eat too much, and make sure that, when you go to the toilet, do it over in the paper over there, right? Okay, see you in a couple of days. And if you need anything, I've set the phone up so that you can hit the numbers with your paw. Just call me, and you can't do it, right? They don't have the facility, and they're not completely stupid. That's but their level of intelligence is lower. The level, I mean, they have qualities that we don't have, like you were saying, Matthew. Dogs have high level of sensitivity and things like that. Of course, dolphins, whales, but they don't have the freedom because of their because of their obstructive intelligence. Yes, Ida.
Well, animals have compassion, so that would be a cause for them to be reborn in another realm.
Yes. And what gets scary to me is I can imagine my dog has a chance to be reborn as a human, I mean, all of them get reborn as humans at some point, but whether they can maintain a human lineage is a different story. Most beings attain a human rebirth only once, and then they go back down for a long time. Okay. But yes, you look at those now. I don't think I would want to rely on being a predator. Now, I think the predators have some level of compassion and love for their offspring, right? And maybe even their tribe. If you're talking about predatory birds, they're pretty solitary. So anyway, my point is, it's pretty precarious. But yes, I think animals do have, especially like we've seen, right? Like dogs and dolphins and things like that, of course. So these are higher functioning animals. But when you talk about a turtle, does it have compassion? Turtles lay their eggs and then they abandon their babies. So, some of the level of compassion that might bring hope is being a mother, because they show kindness to their offspring, right? Which is a good thing. But I thought about turtles was not a very, it's pretty, they don't show much affection towards, right, and care towards their offspring. They lay their eggs and they leave. And fish might be the same thing. Anyway, it's just kind of fun to think about. Not like I know what I'm talking about, but this is it's like, let's analyze, right? Let's just analyze. That's all. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just thinking these things out with you guys. So when we'll do this meditation in a minute, and when we okay, so last week we meditated on the clarity of the mind, didn't we? Remember? Okay. So this week, another function of the mind is that it's a stream of consciousness. It's not static. So the logic of this is, there's different logical approaches, but the logic is such that thinking like, okay, I was in a grumpy mood this morning when I woke up, and then I had a pretty good day, so I don't feel so grumpy now, right? I feel pretty good. I'm talking about the mind, so that's mental, right? So from you to be grumpy this morning to feeling good today, is there any way for that to happen if the mind was static? It's not possible, is it? Well, think about it. Maybe it is possible. If the mind were fixed, unmoving, could you feel grumpy this morning and relax tonight? No, it's not possible logically. Perceptually, what we think it's like that, don't we? I mean, just by default, we think those like kind of like a slideshow of grumpy guy or girl this morning, and then slideshow of relaxed guy or girl this afternoon or this evening, right? It's kind of like that, right? But it's not. It's a film. It's not a slideshow. Okay. But pretty important to realize my default mode is I don't see things as a stream. I see them as slideshows. Does that make sense? What's that, Ida?
It's the other way around. See life as a stream, not as a slideshow.
Right. But how do we? Yes. But how do we see it? Do we see it that way?
No, we usually see moments, moment by moment.
Like frozen
like
moments.
There's a black halo around things.
Yeah. Or like that's why I use the idea of a slideshow. We see things as, fixed images. And it's not. That's not the way it is. So the mind is a stream of consciousness. Okay. So, so let's do this meditation. Let me find where I'm going to bring up that slide. So let me go through these really quick with you. This is the content. So in analytical meditation, the purpose is not to develop single point concentration. It's to develop insight. Okay. A correct understanding. And now the primary insight that we're looking to develop is a correct understanding of the way things are. So that means a correct understanding of reality. The definition of reality I don't know if it's the actual definition, but it fits. It's really, I didn't hear this from until not that long ago. It was very helpful for me anyway. The definition of reality is that something exists the way it appears. So if you look at your wall or whatever, anything material, you're not seeing reality because we're not seeing it the way it exists. Right? Now, that's not the deepest level of reality, but just the fact that we don't see the impermanence of the wall, okay, means we don't see the reality of the wall. In Buddhist philosophy, that definition of, we don't see things as they are. We don't see reality. The question is, well, how are things? That's philosophical. There's 4 levels, 4 different schools that define how things are. And they go from the more elementary to the very most profound definition. So when I say we don't see reality because we don't see the moving of the wall, even though it's moving, right? That's the lowest school of understanding reality. So that's not even close to what is real reality, the deepest, profound. Now, we're not going to go into that now, but I just want to share that with you, that's what analytical meditation, we can only, so the deepest level of reality, as you know, you've probably heard, is the reality of emptiness and emptiness of inherent existence. So we see everything existing inherently. And again, not going into it now, but this is the philosophical schools that we need to study. So we see everything as inherently existing, and we're taught that they do not exist inherently. And we're taught that when we see reality, this is very important. The reason we want to perceive reality is that's the method of attaining enlightenment. Okay, sometimes that wasn't made so clear to me. I thought, oh, we need to meditate on the emptiness of inherent existence, often referred to just as emptiness or shunyata, but it's better to say emptiness of inherent existence. I thought, oh, well, I didn't realize the direct correlation between that realization and that's the cause of enlightenment, actually. Okay? That's the cause of enlightenment. Not compassion and not love, not bodhicitta, not realization of death and dying, not realization of impermanence. It's the realization of the absence of inherent existence. So again, just to not leave you hanging, but what that means is that we see everything as inherently existing and we believe that's real. And because nothing exists inherently, we don't see reality. Okay? Does that make sense? I mean, at this stage, this is this is the deepest topic in Buddhism, of course, but just on this level is very, very helpful to understand. Okay? And then when we begin to see things how they exist, that's what's referred to as special insight. But the actualization of special insight is gradual. So even leading up to that are insights and insights and insights and insights, okay? And they just get deeper and deeper. So analytical meditation is using creative intellectual thought into play, okay? So it's it's developing creative intellectual thinking. It's critical thinking, discriminatory thinking, which has been lost by many people. Don't have that, and that's why, like, the whole anti-vaccine attitude, anti-mask, I can't say the whole thing, but that's driven by this lack of critical thinking. Just let's talk critically about it, and maybe I'm wrong, right? But you can't enter that conversation because the people who don't believe it are not using their the quality of logic, the quality of discriminative thinking, or whatever you want to, critical thinking, analytical thinking. They're not using it. haven't developed it. So it's more faith-based orientation. I think that's also, if I may say, I may be getting into deep water here, but I think that's why many fundamental Christian organizations are hesitant about vaccines, because it's a faith-based approach to reality, not a logic-based approach, which science is logic. Okay. Now, in developing this insight in reality, we first need to do it conceptually, not direct. We don't have direct perception yet. It's going to take a long time, perhaps. Now, we develop calm abiding. Now, calm abiding, that thing we're talking about before of meditating, developing stabilizing meditation, that gets the mind so subtle that then to meditate on this critical thing, analytical meditations, becomes very fluid, very quick, very easy. Okay. By the way, when we talk about a direct experience, which comes a lot through this analytical meditation, direct experience is experience, the purest sense of direct experience is without conception. There's no thought, it's just direct experience. And we can have a direct experience of impermanence. We can have a direct experience of the precious human rebirth. We can have a direct experience of death and dying. We can have a direct experience of karma, cause and effect, and a direct experience of the emptiness of inherent existence, of reality. That's what we're trying to get to. So this calm abiding and this analytical meditation are all things that are honing the, kind of sculpting the mind. More and more training. Yes, Matthew.
And in order to have any kind of direct experience, you can't use your gross consciousness, your conceptual mind. It has to be a subtle level of mind.
In this, well, actually, no, because even a conceptual experience can be correct, can't it? Like you look at some smoke coming over the hill, and you have a conceptual, there's fire there, right? Right? So that is conception can have direct experience, but there's a difference. So this is getting more subtle, but I'll just say it real quickly. Through conceptual understanding, it's understood through what we refer to as a mental image. So a mental image occurs to you. So the direct experience that I'm talking about in meditation doesn't have that mental image.
Okay.
It engages with the object directly. There's still ignorance and, there's still things going on, but it is engaging with the object directly, not through a mental image. Most of the time we have mental images. Like when you look at the tree out there, or whatever, I don't know if you have trees out there. I have trees out there. There is a direct perception of it, but immediately the way I experience that green tree is through a mental image. Okay? It's still experienced through a mental image. When I'm meditating direct perception of reality, there is no mental image after a while. That's the direct realization of emptiness, for example. Before that, there is realization of emptiness with a mental image. And it's very, 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 very profound. When we have the direct experience without a mental image, without a concept, then we are never not going to attain enlightenment. You're done with samsara. You're not out yet, but you never have a polluted rebirth. You never, you just get wholer and wholer, more and more awakened. So we're at least trying to attain that level, the direct experience of emptiness. Ida, did you have a question?
Prophet, I've asked this before, but
okay.
Having a mental image of an abstract concept, like space, for example, you're able to do that as well. Or the clarity of the mind. Can you actually have a mental image of that? A concept, right? Still?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. In fact, we do. But over time, you have the direct experience of the clarity of mind without the mental image. possible. You know, that's what we're trying to get to.
I'm still trying to create an image to understand that.
Well,
if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit like what we last week. You start with accepting that everything's occurring, all your experiences are occurring within the clarity of your mind. But that's still a mental, you know, and then you the more you get sort of a feeling, and then you get a little insight, right? Then your single point of concentration, the reason we try to develop that is then you quit thinking and analyzing, and you zone in on that experience. Okay, it's experiential. You know it when you have. Now, it doesn't mean it's still not mixed a lot with concept. I understand. But if you can begin slowly through your mindfulness practice, keep your mind focused on that clarity. This is where I didn't go into it tonight about the single point of conscious state. The calm abiding practice is using introspection and mindfulness. So mindfulness is a little part of your mind is watching that you're staying on topic. And then introspection is checking whether your mind's getting dull or excited. So when that happens when you're meditating on the clarity of the mind, you have to employ those two things. And over time, as your focus gets better, you'll see the clarity of the mind more starkly.
Yeah, in a couple of eons.
No, I hope soon. Maybe, but maybe sooner. Yeah. Maybe sooner. Anyway, His Holiness said, I was at a teaching with His Holiness Dalai Lama many years ago, and he said, one of the things he says, you know, I'm becoming pretty comfortable with taking 3 countless eons. So can you imagine? We're all going, oh my God, I have a heart attack. Okay.
Hey, we've been here forever.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
know, and we have a roadmap. So
yeah,
what's the problem?
There's no problem. Just we got to make sure we get good rebirths, and you know, where we can continue practicing, and which I'm confident that we will. Okay, I'm going to leave this part just so we can have a minute or two and do it. Let's see. There's so many nice things I wrote here, but I guess we're going to have to skip them. Okay. So if you close your eyes, you can look at these slides as we do it if you want to remind you. So get in a comfortable position and just watch the breath for a moment or two. You can say, count the out breath up to 10. Now, when I explain this, you're doing an analytical meditation following my cues, but there could come a point where you actually have a direct experience of what I'm talking about. At that point, stop analyzing and just focus on the experience. Okay? So the first thing is that notice how each moment leads to the next moment. Just spend a moment or two with that idea. Try to see it. So it's a stream of countless momentary experiences. Take a look at your present mind and observe it in a detached way, like we talked about. So in the same way we observe the breath in a detached way, now we're going to observe the mind itself. Now trace the progression of your mind to the point where you woke up this morning. So look at a series of river, go back up the river, to when we started class, or even a couple minutes ago, Ida was asking a question. We'll follow it back further, maybe to the beginning. Just do that until you go back to when you woke up. There's no problem with detail, but keep the mind moving back. Don't get stuck on any one like thing that happened or problem solving or anything like that. And see if you can trace it back to when you were before you woke up. Or maybe go right to when you woke up. And now go backwards into your dream state, sleeping state. Now go back to when you went to sleep last night, got into bed. Now go back to what you were doing before you went to bed. Go back to when you're eating dinner. Go back to when you had lunch or midday yesterday. Back to the morning yesterday. Go back to when you woke up. Now go back a couple more days. Don't get too hung up. Just go in a flow. Go back to a week ago, last Monday. We met. Go back a month. Like 6 months. Go back a year. Is 6 months into 4 months into COVID then. Back the previous year. Keep going back slowly, but don't stop. Go back to your college days, high school, grammar school, preschool, toddler, baby, under the womb, Now the consciousness moves forward to the present day. The reason we're doing it a little quickly is we ran out of time, but we'll do it again next week. So just spend a few minutes slowly coming back, watching the progression of your consciousness to the present day, present moment. At this point, you want to have an intuitive insight into that there's a stream of consciousness. If you can get that intuitive insight and then just engage with that insight. Let it just relax with it. Notice that insight is going to continue on into the future, to tonight, tomorrow, like that. I want you to have a direct insight though. Okay, then bring yourself back to this period of time. And we'll wrap it up. Okay. Okay. So I apologize for not starting that earlier. You can see it can take a while, right? And I think the longer we do it, the more you get a feeling for it, obviously. So I'll try and incorporate it next week again. We'll give it. Would that be good? That'd be okay. Yeah. Okay. And we'll give it more time. And yeah. So work with that this week. Just even if you do 5 minutes, just really. It's almost like what you're doing. Well, this is my experience. What you're doing is almost like feeling it with like you're watching from your heart almost, or some like an observer, kind of like an observer. And remember, you're not making judgments. It's easy to get lost in, oh yeah, I remember that girl, and that boyfriend or whatever like that. It's easy to go like that. But you want to just more or less let it flow, be very fluid. Because what we're looking for here is an insight into the fluidity. Okay, so not getting too rigid about looking, more like a sort of a gestalt, and when you have that, you will have an insight. At that time, stop your analyzing and just focus. You have an insight into the movement of the mind, the stream of consciousness, then just stay with that. Okay? The rest of it is a methodology to get us there. For high lamas or high realized beings, they're there all the time. That's where they hang out. They hang out in that fluidity. Okay? So like we said in what we said, in this process of a meditation session, we had the last one. Dedication. So similar to motivation. So because we're a Mahayana tradition, we think that the last 2 hours in particular, it could be all our life too, but past, present, future life, merit or positive imprints, we dedicate it, that it leads to clarity and awakening in my mind, my potential, my full potential, but that'd be selfish just for myself to sit around enjoying it when everyone else is so confused and so troubled, and even not in their best space. So I want to attain this awakened mind so that I can be of utmost benefit to others, bringing compassion, peace into the world, bringing wisdom and care, affection, and particular wisdom as well, because we can't do without wisdom. Okay. Good night.